President Trump tweeting in part a few days ago, "Our foolish past leaders have allowed China to make hundreds of billions of dollars in trade." A lot of questions, a lot of tough talk. And then, in the meantime, tensions remaining high after North Korea's latest missile launch. For more on this, let's bring in Bruce Klingner. He served as the CIA's Deputy Division Chief for Korea and is now a Senior Research Fellow for Northeast Asia at the Heritage Foundation's Asian Studies Center. And Bruce, we have had some pretty dire proclamations, things look increasingly tense with North Korea. And I haven't found anyone who seems to have a good solution on what we can do to try and stop North Korea from becoming a nuclear power. What do you think?
The nuclear cow is already out of the barn. We think that North Korea has 16 to 20, perhaps even more nuclear weapons. Their medium-range ballistic missile already is nuclear capable, which means South Korea and Japan are under a nuclear threat today. And North Korea continues to work on additional missile systems, the submarine-launched ballistic missile, as well as two different intermediate-range missiles that can hit U.S. bases in Guam, a key node of the defense of the Pacific, including the Korean Peninsula, and also, obviously, the ICBM, which this second successful ICBM test now extends the range of that ICBM. Certainly, it can reach L.A., Chicago, Denver right now, perhaps even New York and Washington, D.C.
So we are in a situation where there's probably not much we can do. We tend to think that if we put pressure on China, China can cut off trade with North Korea, and that will force the North Koreans to the table. But if we make them feel more cornered, is there anything to stop them from using the weapons they already have?
Well, we need to have sufficient defenses to deter and, if necessary, defend and defeat any North Korean attack on ourselves or our allies. And a key component of that is ballistic missile defense. But also on China. The president complains that China's not doing enough on North Korea, which is true. China is not fully implementing required UN sanctions. But the U.S. can do things using its own laws that can influence the Chinese banks and businesses that are engaging with North Korea.
Like
the
what?
vast majority of all... Yeah. Well, the vast majority of all international transactions in the world are denominated in dollars, which means they have to go through a U.S. bank regulated by the U.S. Treasury. Those Chinese banks and businesses, they have to go through a U.S. bank, either through their own accounts or correspondent accounts. So the U.S., with existing laws, can influence those, the behavior of those entities.
Even if we put pressure on North Korea, I guess going round and around in my head trying to figure this out, what's the best hope that we can reach if we realize that South Korea is going to face all kinds of massive problems if things get much uglier there? And as you point out, it's our job to defend our allies, too.
Right. Well, we have to use all the instruments of national power, but we've been underutilizing pressure. That when President Obama said North Korea is the most heavily sanctioned, the most cut-off nation on earth, he was wrong. The U.S., the EU, and the UN did things that to Iran that we have not yet done to North Korea. That's why Iran came back to the table for the nuclear deal. Whether you like the deal or not, that's why they came back.
Right.
But
are we faced with nothing but bad options here?
Well, as people have said, Korea is the land of bad options, but we can't throw up our hand and surrender. So, you know, right now when people talk about negotiating, you know, we've been there, done that. We've had 8 international agreements with North Korea that all failed. We've tried 2-party, 3-party, 4-party, 6-party talks. They all failed. And North Korea has said, from Kim Jong-un down to every major component of the government, we will never, ever negotiate our nuclear weapons away. I would argue that it's under present circumstances when we've been pulling our punches on U.S. pressure and U.S. enforcement of our own laws.
Bruce, can you tell me what you think the best-case scenario is, what we should be striving for right now?
Well, I think if we could get them to an Iran-like deal, but we need to show not only is the door open for diplomacy, but North Korea has been the one that's refused to go through that door, but to induce that, we need to increase the pressure on them to change their calculus, and also you know, we need to enforce U.S. laws by giving them, in essence, de facto immunity, not only North Korea and China, but from our laws. That's not further the cause.
All right, sir, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.